Welcome to the Flame Podcast, spreading the truth like wildfire, featuring Anna Kane, one fired up lady on a mission to set the captives free. Now here she is, your host.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Flame Podcast. We have a very exciting show today. You guys will be happily surprised. You'll get to see somebody's face that you normally don't get to see. And so I'm excited about that. If you are not currently a subscriber to the Flame newspaper, you need to be. You can go to theflameusa.com to get your copies. Notice I said copies. The Flame is a mission and a responsibility, and it really is just to get information out into the masses, into our communities, for people who are not on social media and are not following the things that we get to see all the time. Mainstream media is not ever doing a very good job of really informing us all the way through. So the Flame tries their best to dig a little bit deeper and get more information so we can be making better decisions as a human race. Anyway, so with that, I am going to do happenings, and we have the oldies and the goodies, Elite Potion Detox. If you are looking for a detox supplement, I highly recommend it. I have used it several times. You can go to elitepotion.com to get that. I also want to give a shout out to Glenn Baker. He has the film Finish This Fight. We've been talking about it now for months. You can go to finishThisFight.us/flame to get that film. And I've actually kind of been following on social media, and they were able to get prosthetics for a veteran. And so that process is up on Glenn Baker's Facebook page. So if you are interested in that movie, some of the proceeds were going towards that. And so that has happened. So congratulations, Glenn, for changing one person's life at a time. And go to his Facebook page. Again, that's Glenn Baker, to see how that all turned out. And I want to talk about the market. Yes, the market is back at the House Ministry Center in Snohomish on August 2nd at 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. There is still room for vendors. I know we're like a week and a half away. So if you're interested, you can go to the Flame Facebook page, and there is a advertisement up for that. You can click on that, and it'll give you the contact information for being a vendor. The address for that is 1820 Bigford Avenue here in Snohomish, Washington. So please attend that. Support our local vendors. I know that our very own Kim Coulter will be there and selling her products. They're amazing. I've used them. And, I want to give a shout out to Kim too, because she goes so above and beyond to make sure that she is finding the most organic, pure ingredients possible when she's making her products. And I just really value that. I value every time I get to put a product on my body, because I know that our skin is our largest organ, and anything we put on our skin is going into our body. So I just want to highlight her for that. So make sure to go and visit the market. Also, I announced a couple weeks ago that Lighthouse Alliance was having an event called Empower Her. And I want to tell you that we had that this last Saturday. It was absolutely amazing. I want to give a big shout out to all of the people who attended. I can't even express enough how much information was shared, learned, and absorbed. It's funny how with doing a podcast and having different guests on, and when I'm preparing for a podcast, I'm definitely looking at what the guest does and going through all their information. And I feel like I'm always learning. And I was just so impressed with this event, because I learned a lot, a lot. So thank you for the presenters, and thank you for the participants. And the next time an event pops up with Lighthouse Alliance, you should go, because it was amazing. Also, Oli Life. So I've been sharing about Oli Life for months as well. You can visit theflame.olilifeglobal.com. This is a PEMF therapy and terahertz therapy. It is the only one of its kind on the market for in-home use. And go to theflame.olilifeglobal.com to get more information. I also have an advertisement in the Flame newspaper. So if you get that and have any questions, please reach out to me. I did tell you guys that I was going to share testimonies every week. This week's is short, but it was so valuable. So the testimony this week is I'm 79 years old and I have arthritic knuckles on both hands. Holding a crochet hook was hard. Hands are now back to normal, no pain. I started on low level 1 for 5 minutes and worked up to level 3 for 30 minutes. So these are real life people having real life situations. I honestly, on my right hand, for some reason, I have some allergies and my right hand, my knuckles inflame and crack. And I will tell you, since I've been using the P90 machine, I too have not had that issue. So, yeah, if you are interested and want more information, then go to where you need to go. And woohoo! We are not going to do Steve's happenings as normal today because he is our guest. I know that for those of you who listen often, he's always the faceless voice. And so I was super excited when he is relaunching his book, and he's like, no, let's go through my book. And I know, again, if you listen to the show, you've heard different pieces of his book quite often. And so yeah, we're gonna go do a deep dive. I want to tell you guys one of the greatest things. Well, I want to share just a quick backstory on Steve. So when the Flame first started putting out its publication, Steve actually happened to find it in the lunchroom of his studio, and he looked at it and he was like, no, this is really great. So he reached out, and as most of you know, we have a lot of volunteers, and that's how we make this happen. And Steve reached out and volunteered to do our podcast for us weekly. And it was something kind of new for me, but yet he made it so easy. He's like, nope, we're just going to do this, and this. And one of the greatest things about my Wednesdays is not just the podcast, but it's the after conversations. Steve is one of the most brilliant men I have ever come in contact with. His heart is just so kind and so aware. And I'm always blessed when I leave podcasts because it's not just the guests, it's not just the information that we get to send out into the ether, but it's also our time together where I grow so much. And so I just want to thank you, for all of your time and all of your knowledge. And I'm excited today to talk more about that. So let's talk all about you. What is your book?
Well, it's New Revised, Breaking the Deception Code, Mastering the Art of Deception. And it's right behind over there in the corner, which you can't see right now. Well, maybe we'll grab it over here.
I can reach it.
Yes. So that's the author's copy. So it's got a little bar across there. Anyhow, I had written this book in 2021, and I'll tell you how that all came about. But, I didn't have discernment because I did do my due diligence. I called around, I looked around, I talked to publishers. I talked to a guy that even worked with a former publisher, and he said, oh, yeah, they're great. Well, I hired an editor and did my book and submitted it, and they said, yeah, this looks great. Long story short, I never got paid. So I quit marketing myself. I literally shut down and said nothing for over 1.5 years, 2 years. And I said, I'm going to do it myself. So I'm on the Amazon platform. I do it through them, KDP. I did my first book, The Podcaster's Cookbook, which was my first venture into writing. And just as a backstory for myself, I've been doing podcasting since 2007. I started back in 2006.
You're the OG.
Yes. Started on radio, rented my own airtime, said I'll never spend time money to get on the radio ever again. And so in the meantime, I had met somebody who had an online music show, and we connected, and another guy who he knew connected with me, and I started promoting his 24/7 online streaming radio show, Christian rock and rock music, and Try Rock Radio, your intelligence rock station.
I forgot, we need to do a shout out to Ozzy.
Ozzy,
he died yesterday.
Wow.
Yes.
I don't watch the news, so I didn't know that.
Yes. Ozzy Osbourne died yesterday. Wow. So R.I.P. Ozzy.
R.I.P.
Man.
I saw him in concert, the original Black Sabbath lineup in the 70s. And I remember at the end he goes, "Thank you, God bless." He's got the peace signs up there, you know. But and I've listened to their music throughout the years.
You know, somebody was saying yesterday, so it was all over social media, and it was like, it was actually Nicole. She called and she's like, it's like this collective trauma, like, because he was so a part of so many people's lives that she's like, it's almost like, you know him, like you knew him personally or something.
He had a TV show.
You know, it's like, no, he is like a part of my life. So it was like this collective trauma yesterday. So anyway.
I kind of felt that way when David Bowie died.
Yeah.
I was really into David Bowie. Nonetheless, I was doing this, back to where I was saying is I was doing this Try Rock, and then we were trying to throw advertising in there, and you found out that the royalty issues back in the day were really, really rough.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, let's develop our own show. And I decided, long story short, I decided to start one about motorcycling called the Hog Radio Show.
Whoop, whoop.
So for 12 years, I did a show, co-hosted, produced a show about motorcycles. And I met some of the greatest people in the world, still stay in touch with some of them, the best custom bike builders in the world I got to have on this show. I've got pictures behind here of some of the guys I visited because I got to know them. I got to see their shops around the United States. And then long story short, that led into another show, which was about cars, horsepower, chrome, and rust. Had a lot of fun with that. And then 2021 happened, and we were still doing our podcast, bringing guests in here on a regular basis. But everybody kind of went their own ways. One to move to Idaho, the other one's out in Monroe. And I'm like, okay, we got to just kind of close this down. And God tapped me on the shoulder and said, I want you to write a book. And it was because I was dealing with the whole 2020 narrative, the C issue. And I'm like, okay, I got to write a book. And at first it was going to be about spiritual warfare, you know, like your general spiritual warfare. I've been writing about that. And I've been teaching Bible studies since 1980. And God said, no, I want you to talk about what's really going on in the world, because the devil, we in church, you hear, who's your enemies, guys? Your flesh, the devil, and the world. And they do a good job about the flesh. We all know the flesh. We don't have to have somebody tell us how the flesh operates. We know how that.
You mean you don't want to talk about that today?
Well, we will. But we all know how that operates. I look at something and I'm drawn to it. Women see something, they're drawn to it. Women hear something and they're drawn to it. Men hear something, they're drawn to it. The point being is our flesh kind of craves things that we shouldn't. Holy Spirit tempers us, but we still have that battle on a daily basis. So I knew that. Everybody preaches on that. And then the devil. Okay, the devil tempts us. He's a tempter. And, we hear about the tempting, and that our warfare is not against spiritual, against flesh and blood, but spiritual principalities. But then how does that really mean? Well, no one really gets too deep in that. They just kind of say, well, they tempt you, they throw things at you, you got flaming darts. And there are some deliverance ministries that get into that. But by and large, your average church does not delve into the things of the spirit world. No. And then the world. Well, yeah, we can see, the woke movement. We can see, the Democrats are evil, Republicans are good. Well, hold on. Untrue. Both sides play the same game. But when you're under the delusion, you think, oh, one side's better than the other. We'll get to that in a moment. But the point is, the church doesn't really, gay, homosexuality, transsexuals, abortion. Okay, we all get that. But does anybody ever preach against war? Oh, Oh, no, we don't.
Mm-hmm.
So the church does not do a too good of a job of really delivering the goods when it comes to the world system and how the world system works. And I had been on a long trek. I mean, a long trek in my walk with Christ. And I've always studied the scriptures. I put together a little booklet study guide of how to interpret the scriptures. And when I would go through that, I went, oh my goodness, there's so much things that we're told. But when you look at the Bible, it's like they didn't interpret words correctly.
Yeah.
And then whole teachings come out on around something that wasn't even interpreted correctly. And then other scholars come along and say, hey, hold on, we got to correct this. Oh. So I knew that about that. So, and I've taught myself through bad doctrines forever. But then I was introduced to the world system. And a lot of that took place in 2015. The day that I woke up was the day that Trump got the news was, my alarm goes off. My wife and I, it's on NPR because we like to listen to jazz at night. And the NPR music, news comes on. And I'm listening and it says, well, we have an announcement. Trump has won the presidency. This is 2015.
Mm-hmm.
And literally a voice comes screaming, just careening in my head and says, turn that off. Turn off the news. Turn off the political talk shows. I mean, this is happening like within milliseconds.
Yeah.
And I turned to my wife and said, shut that off. Huh? Shut that off. God told me to shut that off.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay. He doesn't want me to listen to political talk shows because I was a political talk show junkie. Dennis Prager, all those guys. I could tell you how bad the Democrats, how good the Republicans, blah, blah, blah. I came to work, launched my YouTube, gonna listen to music, because that's typically what I did is I work in here, I do my stuff, and I listen to music. And there was a thing about 9/11. And I'm like, we're talking 2015, the fall, 2015.
Right.
So there shouldn't be any, this is past September. Why are we got, and I'm like, I don't know, I'll click on that. And that opened my eyes because I watched it and I didn't work the rest of the day. I just watched that video, then another video. And that got me thinking that there was another world out there that I had no idea. So that in 2015 became my red pill moment that a lot of people say.
Yeah.
I already had that red pill moment within the confines of Christianity decades before that. But I wasn't ready for the red pill moment when it came to politics and the way the world system was. But I had a son, my oldest son, who when I start coming up, he says, Dad, I was trying to tell you that. And I was not hearing him. And I went, wow. So my son was already tuned in. He was probably 23 at the time, 24. And so that opened up Pandora's box. So I'm a teacher. It's a gift that God gave to me. So I've got hundreds of books in my home and I research. So I would hear somebody and they would say something about a book. I would hear an author being interviewed. I'd get their book. I'd find them at the library. I'd do it. I started searching and searching and searching and reading and reading and reading. And it just mounted up and mounted up and mounted up. And I went, wow, the world system. So 2021 was my opportunity to take my 40 years of teaching in the scriptures and my 6 years of being just immersed in the world of the way the world really works.
I want to ask you a question on that because you're talking about your 40 years and it not being until 2015 where you had your red pill experience. How hard was it to then break all of the paradigms that you had already learned?
I put that in my book, and we won't go through all the stages, but I put the 12 stages of awareness in my book. You're dumb. Let me ask you a question. How do you know you're deceived, Anna?
Oh, how do I know I'm deceived? I guess it would be just following along and not questioning.
Well, that's the definition of being deceived. But the question is, how do you know if you're deceived? The only answer is you don't.
I'm like, yeah.
Because if you're deceived by the very definition, we're deceived.
You would know.
You would know. So at every level, we're all deceived. So in my book, I talk about the discernment levels, and I use it to Taekwondo, and I talk about Taekwondo, and I explain the white belt to the black belt, and I have all the belts, and I say most people are at a white, might be up at the yellow, might be a green, but they're never going to go above that.
Well, and I feel like too, even when I think I know like a whole scenario, I've said this so many times on podcasts that right when I think like, oh, here's the full puzzle, something else comes in. I'm like, we are doing our best to discern on the go, and it is ever changing.
And Proverbs says the first man seems right when he comes and presents his case until the second man shows up and presents his. And we get, so that's something, and I put that in the book. But back to what you asked, did that disrupt my life? In some ways, yes, but I embraced it like water out of a fire hose.
Yeah.
I'm that kind of person. When God taps me, and I've had those before, I call them epiphanies. When he taps me and he shows me, I never look back. Yeah. And then it's a matter of consuming and consuming and consuming and consuming and consuming and learning and learning and learning. And the more I learn, the more I don't know. So I tell people I know that much.
Yeah.
I know that much. Do you see that, folks?
Yeah.
That's how much I know.
Yeah.
You know, Job says, God, why did you do that? And then God says, Job, let me ask a question. Yes, God? Where were you when I created the world? Oh, Job just shut his mouth, starts putting ash on his head, and he's got, oh, where were you when I made the badger? Were you here when I made the wind? Were you here? And he's getting, he's shrinking and he's shrinking and he's shrinking. And he said, oh my God, though you slay me, I will serve you. You know, the whole point was this: we know nothing.
Yeah.
The man who thinks he knows is a fool. The man who doesn't know anything and admits to it is wise. So I've learned,
about the people who don't care, maybe because they're fearful? Like you just said, did it disrupt my life? I know for me in 2020 was my aha, and I realized looking back how many things God had already told me, and I just argued and didn't listen. And it was like in that moment, I'm like, no more. I will follow no matter the cost. And yes, there are times that it's scary, but once I make the leap, it all works out, right? And so I think for so many, it's the fear of even knowing, like they just decide, I don't want to know anything because I'm too fearful.
And I talk about that. I explain that in my book. I talk about that. One of the things is, one of the levels is you get to the point where you realize what you've believed is a lie. But the pain of accepting that is too great, so you back off. And then at a point, you may become a proponent of the lie even more.
Yeah.
And so what it cost me was I had already learned to keep my mouth shut around in church settings about a lot of things.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be divisive. But when it came to your family going along with the agenda, when it came to people you loved going along with the agenda in 2020, and you saw how people were operating, yes, that affected me. It affected my family. It gave me some stress, gave our family some stress. But it was interesting. When it came around the 2020 narrative, I started calling my friends. I said, are you buying into this? No. Are you buying this? No. Are you buying this? No. Are you buying this? No. And I went, thank you, God. You put some really good, solid people into my life.
Amen.
And I think it's because I've cultivated that over the past 35, 40 years. And I'm very careful about close friends. So I had that, but those of us who had that moment, we had to face the fact that 80% of the population went with the agenda. And so I started why did they go with the agenda? And that's what I start explaining in my book. I talk to you about how they pulled it off. And, you got psychosis, you got mass psychosis, brainwashing, propaganda, but it really comes down to spiritual things.
Yeah.
Because the scriptures talk about doctrines of demons. And we're not told what is a doctrine of demon. Well, a doctrine is a teaching. It's a learned way of thinking. Well, when you bring a lie into your way of thinking, you have now opened the door and give a passageway for the spirit of lying to now inhabit your mind. And you've literally given them permission. I'm writing a whole nother book that's going to get deep into the weeds in this. But we have opened up, it's laws. Everything's written on is based in laws. Heaven and earth are based in laws. And basically, when you open your mind and say, I'm going to buy into this dogma, I'm going to buy into this indoctrination, I'm going to buy into this propaganda, I'm going to buy into these lies, then Satan, we'll just say Satan, but the spirit that's attached to that belief has a right to go into your mind and occupy that portion of your mind.
Well, and that once that happens,
you can't.
It occupies your heart.
Yes.
And then the next step is it occupies your action.
Yes.
So mind, heart, action.
And if you buy a lie, you will suit up, go kill a bunch of people in a foreign country that have nothing to do with us because you were told to do it. You will suit up, you'll go in the operating room, and you will put things in people's throats that should never have been put there. You'll put protocols. You will file protocols over what you knew that you were been taught in the past. In the medical field, you're taught how to deal with flus and whatever. But all those went out the door and they followed protocols. Well, those protocols were doctrines, and they followed the doctrines that they were given. And when they followed them, they were now trapped in that paradigm. And to admit that they were in a paradigm meant that they could lose their job, which meant they could lose their money, which meant they could lose their possessions, which could mean that they could lose their position of power and
which they don't even have clearly.
No. But so let's go back to this. I write in the book 6 P's. Now I learned these things over the years. 5 P's, 6 P's. People are motivated by power, pleasure, pride, self-preservation or protection, possessions, and then let's see, what's the other one? Pride, power, possessions. There's one more. It's in there. I'll grab it.
Peace?
No. Pleasure, power, pride, self-preservation, possessions. Anyway, there's one more, but we're driven. So if you think about this, why did Epstein's little fiasco explode years ago? I mean, we're talking years ago. It got shoved underneath the carpet. Ultimately, he got re-arrested. And why is it there's a big cover-up? Because most politicians and people in power also love pleasure. And that pleasure drives them to do evil things. They get captured on tape, on film. And so now that pleasure and your power, oh, I'm above it, so I have the right to rape little kids. And then somebody takes advantage of that for profit. And now they blackmail the politicians. They blackmail the CEOs.
Profit.
Yeah, profit. And so when you put these things together, it's like, well, no wonder nothing gets done, because they're seeking power. That's why they're in politics. That power leads to pleasure because they get everything. They're like a rock star. You know, a rock star. Now, rock stars, they don't care. They're out there hitting up everything that comes into the back in the back door after the show. But politicians have to play it cool. They got families. They've got their face,
have a reputation
to keep. They don't want you to think that they're a rock star, a hound dog. So anyway, they operate this way, but there's people who take advantage of this. Epstein and his crew were taking advantage of this. They have film on this. Well, that's why nothing's being put out, because they're driven. So now let's put this back into the hands of why you wouldn't want to make a change. Because to admit that your belief system is wrong might mean that, well, I'm in a Calvinist church, I'm in a Reform, and now I don't believe in that belief system, that 5 points of Calvinism. I believe in free will.
Right.
Well, if I get found out, I'm not going to get brought to the founders clubs, and I won't get to be preaching on the Reform circuit, and I might get defrocked because my denomination says you're no longer teaching our denominational teaching. So then what happens is that pastor is going to be in turmoil. And are they going to teach what they know to be true, or are they going to hold on to a false dichotomy? Now, we could put that in with any other dispensationalism. Why do we believe in this? Because we've been taught it. What's the outcome of it? What if you stop teaching it? Well, again, your denomination will say, no, you can't be part of our denomination. Now you can't go and do your seminars anymore. Now you can't get on the talk show circuit. Now put this into a CEO. If a CEO says, I don't want to fire 1,000 people so I can make a couple extra $1 million in my shares, and I'm going to actually reduce my shares, and I'm going to take less money, and I'm going to open it up to profit sharing for everybody. Well, the board's going to say, get the heck out of here. We're going to fire you. So then he goes along with it because he's motivated by the power. He's motivated by possessions. He's motivated by profit. So when it comes back to when we have an awakening, we're faced with a reality. And if you look at Jesus, he says, I am going to teach the truth and the way. And he said, unless you love me more than your family, you cannot be my disciple, because their family at that time were Jews and Judaism, Talmudism, and Jesus was teaching a new way. And those who followed him knew that their reputation would be soiled, their reputation would be different, and they might be ostracized from their family.
Yeah.
And sure enough, the same thing, if you're in Islam or Buddhism or Hinduism, you will get ostracized because you're no longer following their pathway. So there is costs to when you have a wake-up call. And most people do not want to go through the cost of the wake-up call. They'll have the wake-up call, they'll see it, and then they'll quickly go right back into staying, okay, now I don't believe this anymore, but I'm going to be very quiet about it. So we saw in 2020 a lot of cool things happen. A lot of people came on fire. 20% of the population did not get the inoculation. The 80%, a lot of them, they're not admitting it, but some of them have. They've got talk shows and they're saying, I was wrong. I took the thing and now I have had side effects, and I'm not going to believe these guys anymore. And it's caused a ripple effect. There's a lot of people aren't going to voice it, but they're going to inwardly go, I'm going to question everything now. But then we saw within the October event, the new October event, a new narrative sets in place. And the churches that were going, I'm not closing my doors. Now they're going, we support Israel. We support annihilation. We support genocide. And you're like, what? Where in the New Testament does it teach us to do any of that?
Right.
Where does Jesus teach that? It doesn't. He doesn't. But our indoctrination, our belief systems now allow us to believe that it's okay to pay back evil. And yet we're told directly to never pay back evil for evil. But that's what they're saying it's okay to do. We can extrapolate that on every level, Anna.
Yeah.
That's how deep we've been deceived. And I'm just scratching the surface. I, in my book, explain how this works. This is a process. I'm 66 years old, I'm 65. I've been indoctrinated since I was a child, some baby. I didn't wake up and go, oh, I want this put in my body.
Right.
My wife and I, we did the same thing to our children. And then we waked up later and went, we'll never do that. And now our children are we're not going to do this.
Yeah.
That's the good thing. But that wake up call, that red pill, when you look at the movie, The Matrix, he had a choice. And then he woke up and he went, oh my God, we're in a war. Bingo. What's the New Testament teach? That we're in a war. Most people don't want to understand we're in a war. Now, the good news is this. I have an awesome life. I have an abundant life. I have a blessed life. I've been spending time with my family, vacationing. So even though evil goes on around us, when you really, really have the truth and you're operating in the Holy Spirit, you turn off. That's why God said, turn off the news, turn off the political talk shows. And it didn't dawn on me why, but it was because when I don't listen to the news, I no longer care about what I can't care about. I do watch certain things. Look, folks, I do watch some commentary. I do watch some things about the floods. But then you watch another video and you find out, oh, why was there a flood and people got killed in Texas? Because the county officials didn't take the money that they were given from the federal government a few years ago to put in a system. They gave it to the sheriff's department instead. And consequently, people died because people were not operating with integrity. They were not operating with the idea that people's lives matter. They were operating under their own personal agendas. And that they will have the blood of those people on their shoulders, as will every doctor that went along with the agenda, as will every soldier that goes along with the agenda. Now, we have to plead ignorance. We have to plead, I am deceived in some cases, but there's deliberate going along with an agenda.
Yeah.
And so when you understand that, I disengage from these things. So I can be on the road, do road trips, and then just enjoy life. And hey, did you hear this? I mean, I had a bunch of friends over at our house. We had a barbecue a couple of weeks ago. And, oh, did you hear this? And they started getting really going. And one of the guys is kind of getting a little frustrated. And he says, guys, I want to read something out of Colossians. And he reads, now we should set our minds on the things above, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, everybody was convicted. And I went, thank you, Jeff. I've been thinking about that for the last half hour, but you opened up and said it. And all of a sudden, it shifted the mind. It shifted the emphasis. And afterwards, one of the guys, and I told one of my friends who's there, he goes, I get so caught up with politics. And I go, you got to stop it. How?
What is the balance? Yeah, that's, so I'm thinking as you're talking about how much energy goes into all the negativity of, did you hear about this, or all the things that are happening around us in the world, right?
Yep.
So where is the balance of being aware in what we can do about it? Right. Because I mean, the flame deals with that a lot. Like when we're looking at the bigger picture, we try to stay in the bigger pictures, digging a little bit deeper, but you have to be in the know, right? So where is that balance?
So I read a lot.
Yeah.
And so I immerse myself in the evils of this world. Just because I have to read history, I read about how people operate, how humanity operates. And so when you hear stories, you do research. You don't hear the first story and say that's fact.
Yeah, no, never.
But we do. Well, I mean, we watch. I don't. I'm just saying.
Most people, yes.
Most people will watch the nightly news and think that's the truth.
Yeah.
Well, the nightly news is scripted. Everything that comes through the airwaves is scripted. They write out a script, and they tell you exactly what they're going to tell you, and then they repeat. They said, "This is what we told you." And they told you, they show you the same images again and again, same footage, and they just gave you a snippet of what they wanted to inform you about. They didn't give you the backstory. They're not even going to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases. Sure, there was a car wreck, blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine, there was a car wreck, but we have to be informed, but we have to listen to a panoramic view. get a panoramic view. So in other words, myopic is like this. You're like, I can only see President Trump with these eyes, MAGA, 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 reawaken tour, MAGA, MAGA, MAGA. And then Operation Warp Speed. What? Whoa, what? Oh, no, he's got a plan. He's got a plan. He's got a plan. He's got a plan. We're following a plan. We're following a plan. What? What plan here? What plan are you following? Yeah, they are following a plan, but it's not the plan you think.
Yeah.
And then we get 4 years of another person, and he's doing the same agenda. And then we saw what's going on in Europe, and we're seeing what's going on in Ukraine. And by the way, we don't even know what's going on in Africa. Africa's having all sorts of problems.
Africa's like off the chain, and we have
but we don't know nothing about that because that doesn't pertain to us. We don't care about Africa. Not in America.
Well, we do because Israel cares.
Listen, I'm saying our media totally ignores.
Yep.
You have to go to British TV. You have to go to other outlets and see. This is what you find: outlets, international outlets, Al Jazeera, other outlets, so you can start finding out what's really going on in the world. Now, so you educate yourself on, oh my goodness, there's terrible things going on everywhere. So I know that there's terrible things. Can I do anything to stop it? No. So I do lay awake at night sometimes, Anna, and I pray and I pray and I pray. And I finally came to this: God, you know that I can't do anything about any of this. So I give it over to you. For all of time, you've seen what goes on in this world, the wickedness, the good, and you oversee it. And you're patient, not wanting anyone to perish, but all to come to repentance.
Yeah.
And therefore, I hand everything into your hands. And Lord, please intercede, but comfort all those who have been harmed. Comfort those who have lost loved ones. Comfort them and convict those who are doing evil.
And I agree with that because that's where I feel like too, a lot of things comes down to discernment. Like I feel like God will put in front of me what he wants me to walk through and what he wants to be shown.
Yes.
And so I walk through that. And I think one of the hardest things, especially in the last year, is when we look at this massive genocide that is happening, and it seems to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. I mean, it's in the human trafficking. I mean, it's just fentanyl. I mean, it's homelessness, all of it. Lives are being lost. And in all of that, because I am a believer, I'm so sad. Like my earthly self is so sad. And then there's that part of me that is like, but I know they're going on to a better place, so I can have peace there. Right. However, then there's the third sector. Is that's easy to say because they're not my child. They're not my husband, my parents, my aunts, my uncles. Right. And so there's this other place of ignorance where I can see that because my feelings are ignorant in those situations. And so I think that, it's hard to have the balance, but I think that our job is to have the discernment, take that in, and you're right. The other stuff, let go. What steps were you telling me about? Like we were talking like a month and a half ago, and you're like, when I can't solve something or I know I can't do anymore, I say,
well, I'd have to pull it up, but in a summation is, this comes back to God grant me peace.
Yeah.
Give me wisdom to understand what can I, courage to change the things we can, and wisdom to know where we can't, and peace to accept the world as it is, because we cannot change it, but to accept it. Now, I have really come to understand, blessed are those who mourn.
Yeah.
I used to think that was just when you lose a loved one. But the more, when I went on this rabbit trail, when I went down the rabbit hole, and discovered the way the world really, really, really works. And then I line it up with scripture.
I began grieving and grieving and grieving.
The things you thought you knew.
The things I thought I understood, I was totally, completely wrong about. And I realized the amount of atrocities done purposely. When you understand the government itself is designed to crush us, to control us, to manipulate us. And the people who are above the government do not look at you and I as human beings. They look at you as vermin. They look at you as the other. They look at you as nothing more than cannon fodder, a tool to be used. And so I show this in a document that's in the book. I have a document that's well known. And it's like 85% of it. I took out some technical stuff that really didn't make sense for people. And I put the document in there and some commentary. When you understand that the world is run by individuals who are totally possessed by demonic beings. Now, they look just like you and I, but they are truly possessed because they've allowed their minds to be taken over. Their minds are being manipulated to the point that they're so callous. I mean, you cannot rape a child and think that you have the mind of God. You do not. You can be a pastor and rape children. You're not a pastor. You are a charlatan. You're a hypocrite. You are a Satanist. You are a wolf, but you are not someone who God is working in. And so when you understand that people prey upon other people, people abuse, that over 200,000 deaths in the medical establishment alone because of misdiagnosis, malpractice in the surgery, you name it. People, and that doesn't count probably the millions of people who are scarred because they went in for a simple surgery and now, oops, we slit this open and now you're going to talk funny. Now you're going to smell funny. Now you're going to walk funny. Why? Because someone didn't take the time to do their job correctly. And so when we understand that, you grieve. And then when you understand that, you realize I have no control over out there. So I look at my internal and I say, I have the Holy Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, self-control, tenderness, empathy, compassion. All these things come from the Holy Spirit. I operate in that. So when I'm around somebody and they're promoting something that's not of that, I go, oh, the deeds of the flesh are anger, wrath, malice, division, murder. You know, all war is mass murder. That's all it is. It's mass murder. Read War as a Racket. Mass murder. It's genocide. Every war is genocide. When I started researching, I bring people on my own show. We start talking about what really happened in these wars. You know, the United States firebombed 65 cities in Japan. These are not troops. These are just civilians. So we did genocide in Japan. We did genocide in Germany. We did the same thing. Wow. Well, Japan never firebombed us. Germany never came to America and firebombed us. Wow. And then we could go on and on. The point being is the United States government genocided a lot of Native Americans. We were all about slavery. Oh, yeah, all countries were about slavery. Yeah, but we were supposed to be a Christian nation. So when you go down this rat hole, you realize no heroes. So this is what I learned out of this. God stripped away all my idols. Politics, celebration of our country, the admiration of somebody that served in the military, our forefathers, any kind of institution. All those idols went away because we're not to have any idols, by the way, Anna. We're supposed to, God alone, God alone. We were in 2018, we went to Washington, D.C. as part of our trip. We did my family and I did a road trip. We flew out, rented a van, did all the eastern states. We ended up in D.C. and I was already in this awareness thing. I'm going, oh, They make it very clear. We're Rome. We're Rome. America is Rome. That's what we are. We're Rome. And Rome was vile and they crushed their enemies. And you look at the statue of Lincoln, and he's got the Pax Roma. I mean, he's got everything that came from Rome, all the symbology and Masonic, Masonry and Enlightenment and Romanism. That's our country's government. I thought we had founding fathers who were following Jesus. I don't want to go any further. I'm just pointing out, once you have these awakenings, you detach yourself. You're still part of the community. You love your neighbors. You love everything, but you detach yourself and you're no longer attached to the things that God tells us not to be attached to. And now I'm attached to the things that God are attached to. So that's what this big thing for me, my biggest wake-up call in the last several years, is detaching from all the things that I made into idols, institutions, people, and I looked up to. And I don't look up to anybody. I look up to Jesus and I look up to the Father.
Amen.
And isn't that where we're supposed to be?
I so agree with you on that. And all of the things that you're talking about, systematically, and having those idols, or being in a place, it again, I'm always growing with the flame, and the more people I get to know and get to hear their experiences, the more I'm seeing, just like we talk about, it's two wings of the same bird. And I'm seeing that everything that we know is fractured and broken.
Yes.
And even, and this is the hard thing that I have to absorb, is even when great people get involved to try to make change, and they really believe that, as soon as they get into the system itself breaks them down and changes them. It's not even that this is what's so crazy. It's not even that the people are changed and they're aware that they're making a bad decision. The system makes them believe that what they're doing is the right and best thing.
Correct.
And so there's no fixing that.
That's it.
You can't even fix that. So here we get involved in all of these systems, and this is important, and this is important, and this is important. And no, if we just help the right person get into place, then everything will be solved. And the reality is that it isn't. And that is another place where coming to terms, like we talk about the fear of knowing, and we talk about how so many things die, and yet the fear of this world that we thought had a system, and that the system was good and beneficial for us. It's for everybody. And we realize that system is literally ran by 0.1%,
yes,
and that we have no say in it whatsoever. And so how do we parallel with that and live in it, but live outside of it?
Yes.
And you're right. It does come with a lot of freedom, but then also a lot of hardship. And yet in that hardship, it's not, because you're right. When we focus on God, those things stop mattering as much.
Yes.
And we let those things fall, and we let them die in certain ways. And I'll be honest, I shared 2 weeks ago, doing last month's flame, was I wasn't confident for the first time ever in doing the paper, because there was just so much going on. And I am in that place where I'm seeing the system is so fractured. So how do I continue to talk about the fractured system? And then, you and I talk about this all the time.
Yes.
I feel like some of what we're saying in some ways kind of sounds hypocritical, because we have guests and we talk about these things, but it's all a process of closing those doors and growing and moving forward and finding the solutions. And even too, sometimes when we're talking about all of everything that is going on in all of those systems that are broken, we're actually being able to open the eyes to other people too.
Yes.
So it's all a work in progress. And I know we're getting to a close. And so I want you to just share with us, how how does this book actually, just briefly, what is behind the name of the book, and how does this book help people?
So breaking the deception code, and I explain in the very beginning of the book, and you get it, you'll read this. In war, they have cipher machines, and ciphers create codes, and then there's people who have to decipher it. This world is run by a certain language.
Devil's language.
The devil's language. It's called lying and deception. My book will give you the ability to see through the lies and the deception and decode this world. And I use example after example after example after example after example. I give you the detail, I give you the tools. So that's where it's at. And then it's mastering the art of discernment. I talk about what prevents you from having discernment, and then I show you what allows you to have discernment. So I explain all this. So that's the hope is, if you would read the book, this one's like just 300 pages. And part of that is it's got good references in the back of things you should look at and read and watch and stuff. I have a whole chapter in there of hope at the end of the tunnel. So the light at the end of the tunnel, as you come out and go, oh, I'm out of the tunnel, because I take you through some pretty dark stuff. But I show you how the church could become something more than it is. Mm-hmm. I show how we can become more than we are. And the hope is this. When you really, really understand what I'm writing in here, you'll be set free. You will not invest in things that are temporal and are going to disintegrate and are going to let you down. You're going to invest into things that are eternal, that are long-term, that aren't going to let you down. Because I'm not investing any politics at all for myself. That's me and myself. None. Billions and billions of dollars are wasted for a system that's broken. Mm-hmm. I can get a little angry, and then I go, it was broken in Jesus' time. That system that was broken put him on the cross. And that
Say
system,
that again.
And that system also killed my brothers and sisters for 300 years until 325 AD, when Constantine kind of mated Christianity with the state. And then the church began the idea that, oh, we can have power. And we can carry
I'm writing
a sword.
Power right now. I'm like, power.
We can have power. We can have a seat at the table. Always, it's a seat at the table. So you have all these modern day evangelicals saying, we want a seat at the table. We have all these people around these leaders. Mm-hmm. What is that about? Power. Mm-hmm. And you know what Jesus says? Paul says, unless you become like a servant, unless you have a broken and contrite heart, a humble and broken and contrite heart. That's what it says, to love justice, to love mercy, and to have a humble and broken contrite heart. That's in the Old Testament, it's the New Testament. And to place others above yourself, just as Jesus did. He came to this earth. Mighty God came to this earth and became a baby, submitted himself to a humans, and then grew up so he could understand our world. Well, that's what you and I are called to do. Mm-hmm. We are to love our enemies, pray for our enemies, not pick up arms and kill them. We're not to be, we can call them out. Jesus called out the enemies. We can call them out. The prophets called out the enemies. We can call them out. But we never pick up a sword. We can use our pens. We can use our voices. We can use art, whatever. But we never take and retaliate. And so what you're going to learn in there is how not to be deceived, and also to have quite frankly, a very wonderful life. And the last thing I'll leave with this is you also learn to keep your mouth shut. Because the more you know, the more you keep your mouth shut, because most people are deceived and they want to stay deceived and they don't want to change. So you accept that. Maybe you have a wake-up call. They'll have the wake-up call. They'll have that text. They'll grab their spouse's cell phone, the spouse that they just adore, and they'll pick up that cell phone and they'll go, what's this text? Huh? And they'll scroll through and go, oh my God. And then they'll go to their spouse and say, what's this? And the spouse is going to say, yeah, I've been having an affair for 3 years. That's the power of deception.
Yeah.
And now that person has a choice. Do I allow it to stay as it is and just pretend I didn't see the text, or do I confront and then let the chips fall and then start working on rebuilding a life that was built on a lie?
You and I talk about that a lot. Keeping your mouth shut is so important, because we talk about being relational with people. And when we're truly relational with people out of love, then when they do get those texts, or they do see that one bit of information that finally God just lights them up and gives them that discernment, they're coming for you and I.
Thank you.
The people who loved them through all things.
Yes.
So we talk about that often. You guys definitely, you need to make it to Amazon and get the book Breaking the Deception Code by Steve Johann. Again, I can't tell you enough how blessed I've been in the last, it's been 3 years.
Yep.
3 years of being able to be in the studio every Wednesday, if not most Wednesdays, and doing this podcast and even through the podcast. I know. Thanks for your face today, Steve. I know we get to hear Steve from time to time, but it's the after relationships. It's the after conversations. Steve truly is one of the most brilliant minds I've ever gotten the opportunity to chat with. So make sure to get this book. I did have, I am going to read the Bible verse just quickly. Steve definitely threw in a lot of scripture. And so I was kind of satisfied with the word of Paul towards the end. But I do want to say for today's Bible verse is Isaiah 41:10. Fear thou not, for I am with thee. Be not dismayed, for I am thy God. I will strengthen thee, I will help thee, I will uphold thee with the right hand of my righteousness. And so that is what I hope we take today, is to hold God above all things, be loving and kind, and let's renew our mind and let go of broken systems, and live within the capacity that God is leading us to. So with that, as we like to say, I'm Anna Kane.
And I'm Steve, the producer, Johann, reminding you to keep your tinder dry and your torch lit, as together with God's help, we're spreading the truth like wildfire.
Wildfire.